Planet Earth has been home to countless species of amazing and even deadly animals over the last few 100 million years. But what were the most dangerous of each time period? We'll be going through all 12 periods of the Phanerozoic Eon, covering 500 million years of evolutionary history in order to find out what the most dangerous animal of each time period would be if you traveled back to their primordial world. By dangerous, I mean that the animal in question has the capacity to kill you, the temperament to want to, and enough of a territory overlap to make that event likely. The Vividen Corporation, however, will give you a diving suit and oxygen tank in this scenario so as not to exclude aquatic creatures from our little experiment. Sign your waiver, wave goodbye to your loved ones, and join me on a journey of, well, education, I suppose, and a great deal of entertainment for me. The Cambrian Period is our first destination. This is when multicellular life became common and large across the planet in an evolutionary snowball effect known as the Cambrian Explosion. Planet Earth was warm with high sea levels and hosted numerous phyla of animals that sadly no longer exist. Given your diving equipment, you'll be able to explore the warm coastal seas to your heart's content. Not that there's much to do on land at this point, apart from stare at bacterial mats. I mean, feel free, it's your oxygen supply you're spending. Animals in general were still fairly small during the Cambrian, so truly existential threats to humans hadn't evolved yet. That doesn't mean that there weren't creatures that would potentially harm you, however, so in order to cover my hindquarters and keep departmental funding, I should warn you about them. Phalkiscaris mumakiana was a giant radiodon, up to 1.2 meters long, with sharp, hook-like appendages that it used to capture and possibly dismember prey. The name means mimic scythe shrimp, referencing how the shape of its wicked endites resemble tusks of the Mumakil from Lord of the Rings. Fortunately, it's not adapted to hunting animals anywhere near as large as humans, and you should be able to avoid getting stabbed fairly easily. The same goes for Anomalocaris, which had similar weaponry but was slightly smaller. In order for it to kill you, it would need to be extremely lucky and nick an artery through your dive suit. Omnidens amplexus is a bizarre, poorly understood animal that seems like it belongs in a 90s sci-fi horror film. It's huge, at potentially 1.5 meters long, but with such a small mouth, it's not liable to cause you serious injury. Bonus points for looking like a Lovecraftian god, though. The Cambrian seems safe enough to visit. Perhaps we can start our ecotourism chain with an office here. How about the Ordovician? The first plants show up on land, beginning to produce oxygen. Earth may have had rings during this time based on the pattern of documented asteroid impacts, so you'll have a nice view. The high CO2 levels make for both a high temperature and an inhospitable atmosphere, so we don't recommend removing your oxygen equipment for the duration of your stay. Much of the landmass was covered with shallow seas anyway, so you'll want to be prepared for frequent puddles. Within those bodies of water is where we'll find Endocerus, a 3 to 6 meter orthocone. This pencil-shaped nautiloid looks scary and is one of the biggest animals on the planet during this time period, but its proportions are such that its arms and beak are quite small. That being said, they're still big enough to potentially overpower a human. We also must mention Agirocassis. It's a huge herded radiodon, over 2 meters long. It's not here as a threatening animal, given that it seems to be a filter feeder without weaponry capable of causing notable harm to a human, but it's so incredibly cool that I just had to include it. The true threat of the Ordovician is, without a doubt, the Dark Lord Saccamabaspis. But seriously, the Ordovician is a very low-danger environment in terms of animal violence. We could set up an office here without any issues at all, as long as our equipment works. The Silurian sees more familiar life forms appear on our planet. Vascular plants are well documented on land. Millipedes roll up, both literally and figuratively. Bony and jawed fish appear, giving the oceans that subtle vertebrate touch. But inverts still rule the ocean when it comes to giant dangerous animals, as we see with Brontoscorpio. Traditional reconstructions of this highly fragmentary arthropod put it at just under 1 meter long, giving its pedipalps and stinger the size to cause serious mechanical damage to a human. Still, at that size it was likely rather slow, so you could avoid it fairly easily. You're also twice its size, so it might not see you as prey. Pterygotus is the first animal that could overpower a human with sheer force. This armored sea scorpion, or Eurypterid, was 1.75 meters long and it had long, grasping claws with wicked spikes. These weapons could cause severe bleeding and even snap off fingers or toes. Its eyesight was excellent, so it would track you from further away than you'd likely be able to see it underwater, enabling an ambush. Its long-term swim speed wasn't fast, however, so as long as you stay away from the sand, you should be okay. You've cleared the Silurian, but don't worry, it gets exponentially more dangerous from here. The Devonian saw forests appear, although they aren't what's going to kill you. It's still the aquatic animals, like the fish that have become enormous and terrifying, but invertebrates aren't out of the running yet either. If you thought Pterygotus was scary, and it is, to be fair, Jachelopterus is worse. It's essentially the same thing, but bigger. At 2.5 meters long, Jaekelopteris renaniae is a strong contender for the largest arthropod that ever existed. Its chelicerae rami, the grasping thingies at the end of its claw arms here, were heavily serrated, making escaping its grip almost impossible, and they're big enough to close around your leg. If you get into close quarters with this giant sea scorpion, you're either on the menu or getting injured so badly that you can't deal with anything else. Escape is your only hope, but it is feasible. Hyneria is much more dangerous. This 2.5 to 4 meter carnivorous fish had strong toothy jaws and a sleek build that would be much faster than any human could swim. It lived in fresh water, so now the rivers and lakes you've been purifying your drinking water from, using patented Vividen Corporation tech, contain predators big enough to rip your limbs off. We could, of course, provide medical support in such an event, but that goes against the spirit of the experiment. If you stay out of the water, you're fine. If you go swimming, you're cooked. And what would the Devonian be without its short king, Dunkleosteus? Sure, more complete specimens show that it's not the orca-sized monster we thought it was, but it was still a 4 meter, 1.5 ton, heavily muscled and armored predator that could bite you in half without much effort. It's faster than you, it would happily eat something your size, and there's not much you could do to stop it. In an encounter with a hungry dunk, we give you a 15% chance of survival. You escape, or you die. The Carboniferous is where semi-aquatic and terrestrial mammals start to become threats. Amphibians dominate the land masses in huge coal forests and swamps, living alongside enormous arthropods. The oxygen levels in the Carboniferous varied quite a bit actually, contrary to the narrative that they were always hugely above modern levels, but you'd be able to breathe without too much help from our merchandise. And while the Carboniferous certainly was home to many large invertebrates, relatively few of them would be true threats. Pulmonoscorpius is one of the few potential dangers in that category, at 70 centimeters or 28 inches long. It was venomous in addition to having pedipalps and a stinger the size of a small knife. Perhaps you could be the first to test the potency of its venom, for the good of the corporation, but it would have to catch you first. Pholodurpiton was a 4 meter amphibious superpredator, the Carboniferous equivalent of a crocodile. While its skull was relatively small, those jaws were still half a meter long and could easily inflict nasty wounds. They'd be big threats when you're obtaining drinking or cooking water. Rhizodus hibberti was a 5.5 meter apex predator that weighed over a metric ton, terrorizing freshwater environments. It may have taken down big amphibians in the water and by launching at them on land, ambushing animals about your size with its huge sharp teeth. They're almost tusks at that point, honestly. The Permian Period is when land animals begin going absolutely nuts. Synapsids, a group that includes mammals, dominated the Permian and radiated out into a variety of different forms. Most of the land masses were clustered close together, creating large desert areas that let amniotes like synapsids and sauropsids replace the previously dominant large amphibians. Dry skin doesn't kill them, you see, which many consider to be a competitive advantage. This radical new environment gave rise to beautiful and dangerous forms of life like Inostrancevia, which I must say is perhaps the absolute peak of the pre-Mesozoic animal kingdom. Gorgonopsians in general seem almost too cool to be real, with Inostrancevia as the biggest and baddest of the bunch. It's a 3.5 meter half-ton saber-tooth from Permian Russia that terrorized riverside ecosystems. Living nearby water sources and preying on big terrestrial animals means that it would target you as well. With its erect stance and quadrupedal gait, it would probably catch you and rip you apart more often than not. Dinocephalians were also present in the Permian. While not as fast as Inostrancevia, they reached comparable body masses and had bigger, stronger jaws. Titanophonius could have been capable of bursts of speed despite its sprawling stance, similar to modern crocodilians, but likely had low endurance. Ankylosaurus was a carnivorous brick, with big specimens at 600 kilograms and a skull thick enough to use as a battering ram. This is another instance of an animal that would destroy you in close quarters, but you could easily outrun. Remember, these survival rates would be much lower if escape were not an option. Another serious danger of the time is Joncaria, the biggest dinocephalian by a frankly silly degree and the biggest Permian land animal known from the fossil record. Believed to be an omnivore based on its somewhat flattened teeth compared to other dinocephalians, multiple specimens of this animal exceed 2 metric tons, with others pushing 4. Its bone structure is similar to that of the modern hippo, indicating it perhaps lived as a semi-aquatic forager. If it had a temper anything like that of a hippo, surprising a Joncaria could be the last thing you ever do. Just stay away from rivers, I guess. The Permian didn't sleep when it came to aquatic dangers either. Prionosuchus was a river-dwelling, saltwater crocodile-sized temnospondyl amphibian living in wet forest environments and taking down large prey and fish. It would go after you via ambush, bursting out of the water and tearing into your legs. The Permian extinction was the biggest reset button that nature has ever pressed, at least in terms of large animals. The majority of species at the time went extinct, beset by combinations of acid-rich oceans, desertification, oxygen deprivation, and high temperatures, all caused by extreme volcanic activity in Siberia. That clean slate allowed for the Triassic period to experiment with all sorts of crazy life, and reptiles took over as the dominant terrestrial lifeforms where synapsid had once been on top. I repeatedly have referred to the Triassic as crocodile world, and for good reason. Certainly the dinosaurs did begin to branch out and fill megafaunal niches towards the end of the period, but for most of the Triassic it was Pseudosuchia that ruled. Pangaea proved to be an excellent stopping ground for these quadrupedal, massive armored animals, many of which were carnivorous. Others, like the enigmatic Etosaurs, were the crocodile equivalent of the much younger Ankylosaurs, herbivorous tanks on a bizarre planet. The Pseudosuchians that Vividen Corporation projects to be of greatest danger to you are the Loricotans, large, land-loving crocodile relatives with energetically efficient columnar stances. Their powerful bites were the chief weapons, allowing them to feed on the cow to elephant-sized Dicynodonts that roamed the globe. Prehistoric is one of the best-known Loricotans and lived in Brazil. At 5 to 7 meters long and 1,600 kilograms, not including giant fragmentary specimens, it has the firepower of 3 grizzly bears put into the body of an armored crocodile. Its tibia was quite a bit shorter than its femur, indicating it wasn't adapted for high speeds, and that's your only saving grace. Phytosaurs, according to the most recent phylogenetic studies, were another group of Pseudosuchians, but these ones preferred the water. Smilosuchus was a 6-meter river-dwelling ambush predator, essentially a saltwater crocodile crossed with gonzo, that would be one of your most frequently encountered threats. Its nostrils were on the top of its snout, allowing it to hide in plain sight before grabbing prey with its 1.5-meter jaws. Plateosaurus was a highly successful herbivorous dinosaur, known from 3 species and over 100 specimens. An early sauropodomorph, Plateosaurus was bipedal with large hand claws, and is infamous for the wide range of sizes that fully grown adults could reach. The biggest specimens were 10 meters long and 4 tons, and their deadly claws would be at the height of a human head. Just because it's an herbivore doesn't mean it's not dangerous. As a matter of fact, these would likely cost a significant percentage of your Triassic respawns. They may have been extremely defensive and ornery, given how they lived with the giant land crocs that have been chasing you during our stay here, and there were a lot of them, making contact difficult to avoid. Amphibians may not rule the land anymore, but there's still monsters in the water. Mastodonsaurus was a saltwater crocodile-sized temnospondyle with huge toothy jaws, and would be right up there with phytosaurs in making sure you max out the corporation's respawn budget. Speaking of water, the Triassic was home to some of the biggest carnivores the world has ever seen. And no, I'm not talking about the Jurassic World Giga. Whale-sized ichthyosaurs have been uncovered from North America, New Zealand, and Europe, with the biggest species being the highly fragmentary Ichthyotitan severnensis. The most recent estimates for this animal put it at 24 meters and 40 to 68 tons, comparable to a typical humpback whale. Much bigger fragments exist, known as the Aust colossus, regarded in peer-reviewed publications as between 88 and 150 metric tons. Their jaw morphology indicates they may have been long, slender animals, and we have yet to uncover the portions of the jaw that would preserve teeth. So they're not likely to go after you. We at the corporation are much more interested to observe your interactions with Himalayasaurus, a much smaller but hypercarnivorous Shastasaurid. At about 15 meters long and 30 to 35 tons, Himalayasaurus had powerful jaws with knife-like cutting teeth. It would have been much faster than you, with jaws capable of biting you in half like a biscuit, and wouldn't turn down an easy meal. The Jurassic period represents a significant shift in the dominant terrestrial fauna. While Pseudosuchians would never go extinct completely, they're no longer the dominant megafauna. Dinosaurs take over, spreading across the fragments of the once great Pangaea and diversifying immensely. Warm forests carpet the globe, and vast shallow seas connect the supercontinents Gondwana and Laurasia. These high productivity environments allow dinosaurs, both carnivorous and herbivorous, to become widespread and enormous, and declare war on one another. 2 soldiers in this war would be the most dangerous to a human visitor. Allosaurus is the first, an incredibly aggressive theropod known from multiple species ranging from 0.5 to 5 metric tons. Its long, powerful arms end with claws that could disembowel their prey, and from the litany of injuries found on hundreds of Allosaurus specimens, we know they were no stranger to raging, hunger-induced violence. They're the size of an Asian elephant, they have every reason to eat you, and they have the temperament to pursue you against all reason or thought of personal safety. Stegosaurus is the other soldier in the eternal feud, and does not put up with the crap that Allosaurus constantly brings to the table. Large specimens get to about 5 tons and wield meter-long thagomizers on their tails, spikes that can punch through bones and have a scarily wide range of motion. As large herbivores constantly under threat, they're motivated to be wary and overly defensive. You, being an unfamiliar sight, may cause aggressive behavior that you can only counter by running away as fast as possible. They probably couldn't catch you, right? Plesiosuchus continues the theme of crocodiles never really losing, even if they shifted gears. It was a 7-meter Metriorhynchid, a type of fully aquatic crocodilomorph whose hands and feet had turned to fins. It superficially resembled a mosasaur, although it predated them by tens of millions of years. Stay away from the ocean, and you'll never encounter one. But when you're on a corporation-mandated swim, this is for science after all, we expect a significant respawn cost to be on their tab. Sauropod herds are an interesting one. You can see them coming from miles away, so you could easily avoid them given how slow they are. However, if you're stupid and stick in the area, they could crush you with a footstep, knock trees onto you while feeding, break your bones with an accidental tail slap, etc. Your survival rate should be 100% if you keep your distance, but drops down to 5% if you're dumb enough to let yourself get caught by a herd or stampede. The Cretaceous period is, frankly, insane, and I don't just mean the high sea levels, global hothouse temperatures, and revolutionary appearance of flowering plants. There are so many kinds of animals that would pose a high danger level to you that I had serious difficulty narrowing down the top picks. Please be patient as I ramble. Let's get the obvious ones out of the way. The Cretaceous is when theropods become monstrous in size, with multiple lineages surpassing modern elephants, sometimes by a significant degree. Tyrannosaurs have the bulky giants Tyrannosaurus, Zhusheng Tyrannus, and Tarbosaurus. Carcharodontosaurids have more megatheropods than would be practical to list here. Even abelisaurids have an elephant-sized predator in the form of Titanovinator. I don't think it's controversial to say that in an unnatural deathmatch setting, any one of these giant carnivores would easily overpower and eat you. But there are two extremes I often see argued when it comes to how they view humans. 1. Megatheropods are too big to view humans as a worthwhile food source and would leave you alone. 2. Megatheropods would see you as an easy snack and preferentially hunt you over their typical dietary options. It shouldn't be a surprise that I suggest the truth to lie somewhere in between, if anything closer to option 2. Optimal foraging theory suggests that an animal will only pursue a food item if they stand to gain more energy from eating it than they spend obtaining it. A rule that doesn't rule out a T-Rex or other large theropod eating a small animal. If it's easy for them to catch and eat you, they likely will, but that doesn't mean they'd pick chasing you over a young, one-ton Edmontosaurus, for example, which relative to a T-Rex is about as defenseless but offers far more energy. For that reason, the corporation does not regard megatheropods as the principal threat on your experimental journey, although if you run afoul of one, that's a respawn usage for sure. Now dromaeosaurs. Raptors are infamous for their ability to punch above their weight class, as seen in the Fighting Dinosaurs fossil, as well as the tendency of Deinonychus to mob or cooperatively hunt the much larger Tenontosaurus. Their hand claws are effective grasping and hooking weapons, their toe claws can pin prey down during feeding, and their jaws are lined with sharp, curved teeth designed to slice right through flesh. Even a group of small dromaeosaurs would be deadly to a lone, unarmed human. Heck, even one of them could easily open an artery by attacking you. Those of you who have needed to deal with regular, domesticated roosters might understand how much damage a wee dromaeosaur could easily output. You might be able to hold off or overpower a velociraptor or two with a large stick, but any more and it's getting past your ability to deal with. Once you get to the medium-sized taxa like Deinonychus, about the size of a wolf at 3 meters long and 70 kilograms, you are, forgive the formal language, absolutely cooked in a one-on-one. And it's even worse against a pack. Forget about lasting more than a few seconds if one of the big guns like a Chilibator or Utahraptor notices you. They're much faster than you are, have a vastly superior respiratory system, and can kill you with a single bite. Crocodilomorphs are still here in the Cretaceous, and they're bigger than ever. Deinosuchus was a 4 to 5 ton, 10-meter bruiser that hunted rhino-sized hadrosaurs, ambushing them at riversides and lakeshores with a bite that could crush bone. They might be bobble-headed, but don't make fun of them. Those jaws could snap you in half like a toothpick, and unless you keep a sharp eye out at the waterfront, they likely will. Speaking of water, mosasaurs thrived in the Cretaceous period. They're everywhere, in every ocean across the world, and have a variety of body sizes and predatory specialties. Most of the small ones likely wouldn't see you as preferred prey, but anything in the Prognathodon tier or above, that is to say 10 meters long or more, have jaws big enough to enclose a large portion of your body with a single bite. They were likely very fast swimmers as well, capable of extreme speeds over short bursts. Avoiding the ocean won't help you either. A 2025 study demonstrated the presence of enormous freshwater mosasaurs in the late Cretaceous, beasties that would prowl in brackish lagoons and inland rivers, snapping up prey that wouldn't expect their presence. If you've ever watched an injury at a rodeo, you'll understand how dangerous bulls can be. Take that bull, multiply its size by 10, give it another horn and a bony shield, and you can appreciate the incredible danger posed by ceratopsian dinosaurs. Behaviorally, they're used to defending themselves against bone-crushing tyrannosaurs, so the motive to kill you is there, even if you're just an irritant. The weaponry is certainly present, so that's your method. Their speed is a point of contention for researchers, but the most recent studies I could find, from 2014, so take that as you may, stated a top speed for medium-sized ceratopsians of 25 kilometers or 15.5 miles an hour, comparable to top sprinting speed for an average adult male human. Their weaponry is extreme, whether you have the spiked battering ram facial boss of Pachyrhinosaurus lacustai, the curved death horn of Styracosaurus, or the classic triple build of Triceratops and Torosaurus. Their beaks could snip a human limb in half, a stomp would crush you, and a simple body slam would turn you into jelly. Don't forget their ridiculous ability to shrug off injuries. As highlighted in my prehistoric trauma video, we have specimens of Pachyrhinosaurus that were walking around with half of their faces missing, thriving and unbothered. Most of the volunteers for this project will probably die just by mistaking ceratopsians for peaceful, gentle giants and trying to pet them. Part of the reason why the survival rate for an encounter with a ceratopsian is so low. Hadrosaurs are another high fatality encounter, and one that's difficult to avoid given how common they are in the Cretaceous. Edmontosaurus, for example, would travel in herds of hundreds to potentially thousands of individuals, forming a flood of scales, hooves, and angry dinosaurian muscle. They were also accustomed to being attacked by tyrannosaurs and likely relied on their high speed and size to escape predation attempts. That means they wouldn't care if they stomped on a little squishy mammal during a panic and might go out of their way to do so if they thought you were unnerving. Edmontosaurus is just one example, averaging about 5.5 tons. Shentungosaurus represents the cream of the hadrosaur crop at 13 to 17 tons and is essentially a house on legs. Do not approach. If it decides to approach you, it may be too late. Zoophactinus is likely the most dangerous aquatic animal in the Cretaceous from a human perspective. The 20-foot-long bulldog fish, as it's affectionately called by those who appreciate its terrible majesty, was sleek, extremely fast, and extraordinarily vicious. By that, I mean it ate absolutely any animal it could fit into its mouth, even if that resulted in its own death. We have a fossil of a 4.2 meters Zoophactinus that swallowed a 1.9 meter fish whole and died soon after, presumably due to internal damage that resulted from the prey animal struggling. So yes, this absolutely would attempt to swallow you whole, not caring if it lived or died after. Its entire mindset is eat, 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 and the consequences be hanged. That makes it almost seem more like a Jurassic Park movie monster than a real animal, but it's pretty darn real. We expect an extremely high respawn cost in environments where Zoophactinus is present, which is all over the world. The crown jewel of the Cretaceous, however, when it comes to human fatalities, is the humble small to medium Tyrannosaur. I'm talking about the long-legged, hypercursorial speed demon monsters that can still bite through bone. Nanotyrannus is the principal example here, given its 30+ mile-an-hour top speed, but there are plenty of other taxa that fall into the super fast, bigger than a bear group. We've got Chenjosaurus, Gorgosaurus, Albertosaurus, Teratophonius, Lythronax, Dryptosaurus, Nanuqsaurus, and juveniles of the bigger, more robust species. They're like the Dromaeosaurs, but arguably faster and with dramatically more damage output. There's strong evidence for mixed age group behavior in the 1 to 3 ton Albertosaurus, which has been found in a group of 26 individuals ranging from 2 to 23 years old. Teratophonius, a tyrannosaurid only twice the size of a polar bear, was also found in a mixed-age group. But none of these animals need to hunt cooperatively to treat you like a slow, defenseless snack that effectively counts as free food. They're freaky fast, you're freaky good. Will things calm down after the end Cretaceous extinction, or get worse? The Paleogene Period covers 2/3 of the Cenozoic era and has the sort of diversity you'd expect. Mammals took advantage of their dinosaurian overlords being taken out by Galactus playing baseball and spread into various large forms all over the planet. Birds, or avian theropods, go absolutely nuts and completely take over the sky, which they previously shared with pterosaurs. Embolotherium was a brontothere, which means it was a type of superficially rhino-like perissodactyl related to rhinos, horses, and tapirs. It had a hollow ram that may have been used for generating booming sounds to communicate with one another or intimidate potential predators. They don't need a sharp horn to crush you into paste when they're that big and scary. Titanoboa was one of the first megafaunal predators to emerge after the Cretaceous extinction, living in Colombia approximately 60 million years ago. At 12 to 14 meters long and weighing about a metric ton, it was a fish-eating specialist that was big enough to also easily swallow a human whole. If, even at that size, it's fast enough to capture fish underwater, I don't imagine that snagging you would be all that difficult, especially if you're kneeling by the riverside to refill your water filter. Your saving grace is that its travel speed would be quite slow. Dentaneosuchus is yet another example of the sheer determination of crocodiles to be apex predators, no matter how many mass extinctions they need to weather. A 4 to 5 meter 600+ kilogram sebecid, it had a large powerful skull and hunted horse-like animals in Eocene France. It likely would have used ambush as its main predation tactic and would be more than happy to include you in its surprise parties. The Neogene Period must also be mentioned, with very brief nods to Ototus megalodon and Livyatan. These huge coastal predators focused on extremely big game, but I'm sure young individuals wouldn't have turned up their noses at a weird hairless ape floating by. The first focus for this section of the Cenozoic is on more sebecids. Dentaneosuchus may be gone, but Barenosuchus of South America is even bigger. At 5.5 meters and about a ton, Barenosuchus is one of the largest land carnivores of the entire Cenozoic era. It would have hunted ground sloths and toxodonts and looked at you as a coupon for an easy dinner. Megastotherium is comparable in size, with the biggest fragmentary specimens reaching 1.3 metric tons. Its large gape would allow it to chomp down a human head and a good chunk of your torso to boot, and it could easily outspeed you. It specialized in large prey, but, as is the theme, wouldn't turn down an easy meal if offered. Entelodonts in general were tremendously dangerous animals. Informally known as hell pigs, although they may be more closely related to whales, they were powerfully built omnivores with wicked teeth. They're known to have fought amongst themselves through face fighting. dealing enough damage to leave marks in bone. Whether they're stealing your hard-earned food supply, scavenging your carcass, or stomping you into the ground simply because you looked at them funny, Entelodonts will be responsible for an inordinate amount of respawns. Remember Deinosuchus and how many times we told you it would kill you in the late Cretaceous? Well, it's back, kind of. Purosaurus brasiliensis was a caiman at least the size of Deinosuchus and was the biggest reptilian predator of the Neogene. Actually, it may have been the biggest predator of the entire Cenozoic that wasn't a whale or a shark. It was used to hunting large prey like ground sloths and giant turtles, but its 50,000 Newton bite force combined with ambush tactics is more than sufficient to turn a human body into a pile of kindling. On to the last period of the video, the Quaternary, the tail end of the Cenozoic. It always makes me sad to talk about the Quaternary after thinking about dinosaurs, but it's still awesome in its own way. Oh, hey, speaking of dinosaurs, here's the giant terror bird Devonsensia. It's the size of a large dromaeosaur at 350 kilograms and stood 2.5 meters tall at the head. Its large beak evolved for crushing and killing small to medium mammals, and it could easily outrun any human with its muscular long legs. The question isn't whether it could kill you, but how often it would decide to attack you over animals it would eat in one sitting. Big cats are perfect primate hunters. Megantereon is an excellent example. While other saber-tooths like Smilodon populator were more physically imposing, they hunted bigger game. Megantereon is shown by isotopic studies to have actively preyed on hominids, and it was spread across multiple continents to boot. They can follow you if you try to climb trees, they can outrun you, and they can easily overpower you with forelimbs built for grappling. Our last entry continues the crocodile theme with Crocodylus anthropophagus, a name which translates to crocodile that eats humans. Yeah, checks out. Thanks to fossils of bitten hominids from Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, this croc is known to have predated upon human ancestors. It's the perfect plan. All it has to do is wait by the life-giving water and then leap out and snatch the weak little monkeys, snapping their limbs and drowning them violently. Lord Frieza would be proud. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the geologic history of animal life on Earth. You and the other volunteers will soon be processed and given your equipment for the jump to the Cambrian now that your orientation is complete. Don't worry, you're completely prepared. Each time you die, just remember, you're doing this for science, for progress, for the corporation. Vividen Agent 42 clocking out.
Oh, hey, 85, what's up? I just gave the new batch their orientation. Poor saps look terrified. Do you think they'll use up more respawns than the last crew? Probably the nanos again, yeah. Yeah, Yeah, sushi sounds good. Hail Tyrant Prime. See you at the commissary.